Look, I'm going to be honest with you. When I signed up to be an exchange coordinator at Galactic Preparatory Academy, I thought the hardest part of my job would be explaining to confused alien teenagers why they couldn't bring plasma weapons to gym class. I did not, and I cannot stress this enough, expect to become the unwitting babysitter of what I can only describe as a walking natural disaster wrapped in a deceptively small package. Her name was Riley Vasquez. Human. From Earth. You know, that insane little marble of a planet where literally everything is trying to kill you. Yeah, that. The first time I saw her file, I laughed. Actually laughed. 5'3" tall, weighing maybe 120 pounds, soaking wet, with these big brown eyes that made her look like she couldn't hurt a Flibian moss beetle. The profile picture showed a girl with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing what humans call a hoodie, giving the camera a peace sign. Adorable. Harmless. I should have read the rest of the file. My name is Krell. I'm a Vexorian, which means I stand about 7 feet tall, have 4 arms, natural armor plating, and come from a species that prides itself on military precision and physical superiority. I've handled Kraknor berserkers. I've dealt with Zinthari nobles who think they're too good to follow basic safety protocols. I once talked down a Morgothi war priest from starting a religious crusade in the cafeteria. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for Riley Vasquez. She arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are usually quiet, which should have been my first warning that the universe was about to dump a massive load of chaos directly onto my head. The shuttle bay doors hissed open, and out walked about 30 new students from various systems. The Pelaxians clustered together, their crystalline skin refracting light in nervous patterns. A group of Threnoids shuffled forward on their 6 legs, chattering in their harmonic language. And then there was Riley, dragging a single battered suitcase behind her, looking around with the kind of casual interest you'd expect from someone visiting a shopping mall, not stepping onto an orbital academy filled with hundreds of species who could accidentally kill her by sneezing too hard. Welcome, new students. I projected my voice across the bay, letting my translator implant handle the conversion into multiple languages. I am Coordinator Krell. Please form orderly lines according to your assigned groups, and we will process your documentation. Everyone moved efficiently. Except Riley. She walked right up to me, tilted her head back to meet my eyes and said, "Hey there, big guy. I'm Riley. You got any coffee on this station?" I blinked. All 4 of my eyes. Coffee? Yeah. You know, brown liquid. Smells amazing. Technically classified as a mild toxin to about 70% of known species. We do not serve known toxins in the cafeteria. Her face fell. Oh man, this is going to be a long semester. That should have been my second warning. The third warning came about 6 hours later during the mandatory orientation assembly. I had just finished explaining the gravity adjustment protocols for different deck levels when a Brakthor student, massive even by his species standards, decided to flex his dominance by shoving a smaller Pelaxian out of his seat. Now Brakthors are bullies by nature. It's not personal, it's just how their society works. Strength equals status, and they're always testing boundaries. Usually I'd step in, file a report, and assign some extra duties. Standard procedure. But before I could move, Riley was already there. "Hey, Hulk reject," she said, poking the Brakthor in his armored back. "Kick on someone your own size." The Brakthor turned, saw her, and started laughing. "Little meatbag thinks she's tough. Little meatbag knows she's tough," Riley smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Apologize to the Pelaxian, or we're going to have a problem." The entire auditorium went silent. 800 students holding their collective breath. The Brakthor leaned down, bringing his face close to hers, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Or what, human?" What happened next took maybe 4 seconds. Riley's hand shot out, grabbed one of the Brakthor's mandibles and twisted. Hard. The massive alien yelped and dropped to one knee. She leaned in close and whispered something I couldn't hear. His eyes went wide. His skin went from aggressive red to terrified pale green. And then she let go, patted him on the head like he was a pet, and walked back to her seat. The Brakthor scrambled up and practically ran out of the auditorium. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. A human, barely a tenth of the Brakthor's mass, had just dominated one of the most aggressive species in the galaxy using nothing but, what? Technique? Attitude? Pure insanity? After the assembly, I pulled her aside. Ms. Vasquez, I need to discuss what just happened in there. The bully situation? She shrugged. Don't worry about it. We're cool now. You assaulted another student. I defended another student. Big difference. Also, I didn't hurt him. Much. He'll be fine after the embarrassment wears off. Give it a week or two. I activated my datapad, pulling up her file again, this time actually reading beyond the basic information. What I saw made my blood run cold. Home planet gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. Atmospheric composition, 21% oxygen, the rest mostly nitrogen with trace gases. Native predators, everything. List of natural threats. Bacteria, viruses, fungal infections, venomous creatures, poisonous plants, extreme weather events, geological instability, solar radiation, and something called drop bears. There was a note at the bottom flagged in red. Human students are reminded that their baseline physical capabilities exceed most species' athletic peaks. Please exercise appropriate restraint in physical activities to avoid accidental injury to fellow students. I looked at Riley, who was now examining a decorative plant in the corner with what appeared to be genuine interest. Are all humans like you? Like me? Nah, I'm actually pretty chill compared to some folks back home. You should meet my cousin Marcus. Now that dude is intense. She glanced at me, grinned. Why, having second thoughts about accepting a Deathworlder into your fancy academy? Yes. Absolutely yes. But I couldn't say that, so instead I went with, just please try not to break any more students. Can't make promises I can't keep, Coordinator. But I'll try. The next few days were surprisingly calm. Riley attended classes, aced her exams with the kind of scores that made the Pelaxian honor students cry into their study guides, and even made friends with a shy Morphean girl named Tala, who practically worshipped her after Riley helped her with some advanced physics homework. I was starting to think, maybe just maybe, the orientation incident was a fluke. Then came gym class. Galactic Preparatory Academy's physical education program is designed to accommodate hundreds of species with wildly different capabilities. We have low gravity zones for flyers, high-pressure environments for deep-sea species, and everything in between. For most students, it's a chance to stay fit and socialize. For Riley, it apparently was an opportunity to give me my fourth heart attack of the week. The gym instructor, a well-meaning heptarian named Coach Vex, decided to start the semester with a friendly game of orbital ball. Think zero-gravity soccer meets full-contact rugby, but with fewer rules and more opportunities for broken bones. It's usually played with older students who have proper training. Coach Vex thought it would be fun to let the new students try it out. I watched from the observation deck as Riley floated in the zero-gravity arena along with about 20 other students, listening to Coach Vex explain the rules. The objective was simple: get the ball through the opponent's goal ring. Physical contact was allowed. Strategy was encouraged. The game started. Riley immediately grabbed the ball, tucked it under her arm, and launched herself toward the goal using one of the arena's push-off plates. A Kraknor student, built like a tank and covered in spikes, intercepted her with what should have been a game-ending tackle. Should have been. Riley saw him coming, twisted in mid-air with a grace that shouldn't be possible for a species that evolved in standard gravity, used the Kraknor's momentum against him, and sent him spinning off into a padded wall. Then she continued toward the goal, scored, and landed with perfect precision. The arena erupted in confused cheering. That was awesome. Tala squeaked from somewhere near the ceiling, her tentacles waving excitedly. Coach Vex looked stunned. I looked stunned. Riley just grinned and said, "Who's next?" What followed was 45 minutes of pure, concentrated chaos. Riley wasn't just playing the game. She was dominating it. Every species in that arena had some kind of physical advantage. The Kraknors had size and strength. The Pelaxians had speed and agility. The Thrinoids had extra limbs for multitasking. Riley had something else entirely. Experience, adaptability, and this weird human thing called competitive spirit that apparently turns normally rational beings into unstoppable forces of nature when you put points on a board. By the end of class, her team had won by a margin so large that Coach Vex had to check the scoring system for errors. Riley herself had scored 12 of the 15 goals, assisted on the other 3, and somehow convinced half the opposing team to switch sides because, quote, playing with her was more fun. I cornered her in the locker room afterwards. What? How did you just do all that? You're from a high-gravity world. You shouldn't be that mobile in 0G. Riley toweled off her face, looking genuinely confused by my confusion. Coordinator Krell, I've been playing sports my whole life. Soccer, basketball, track, martial arts. You think Earth gravity is easy? Try running a marathon in humidity so thick you can chew it. Or doing gymnastics when a small mistake means face-planting into solid ground from 10 feet up. 0G is honestly kind of relaxing. Relaxing. She called zero-gravity combat sports relaxing. I updated her file again with a new note. Recommend careful monitoring of all physical activities. Human may not unattend own capabilities relative to station norms. That night, I got a message from the Academy director, a dignified Zarathan named High Scholar Mira. She wanted to see me first thing in the morning. The subject line just said, the human situation. Oh good, this would be fun. High Scholar Mira's office was located in the highest tower of the station, with viewports that overlooked the swirling purple nebula we orbited. Normally, the view calmed me. Today, I barely noticed it because I was too busy watching Mira's facial tendrils twitch in what I recognized as deep concern. Coordinator Krell, she began, her voice carrying that musical quality all Zarathans had. We need to talk about Riley Vasquez. I slumped into the chair across from her desk, all 4 arms spreading in a gesture of exhausted surrender. What did she do now? Nothing. Yet. That's what worries me. Mira pulled up a holographic display showing various incident reports. Since her arrival 6 days ago, we've had 17 complaints filed against her. Not by her. Against her. Every single one has been withdrawn within hours. Withdrawn? Yes. The students who filed them suddenly decided they'd overreacted. Or misunderstood the situation. Or, in the case of the Brakthor from orientation, they decided they'd rather transfer to a different sector entirely than pursue the matter. I thought about that mandible twist, the whispered threat I couldn't hear. She's intimidating them. Perhaps, or perhaps she's simply resolving conflicts in ways our systems don't account for. Mira's tendrils stilled, which meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. The human species has a documented history of surviving impossible situations through a combination of stubbornness, creativity, and what their own scholars call controlled aggression. They dominated their entire planet, Krell. Every ecological niche, every climate, every predator that came before them. They didn't do it by being gentle. So what are you saying? We should just let her run wild? I'm saying we should watch carefully and intervene only when necessary. Because if we push too hard against a human, especially a young one still learning her place in galactic society, we might discover exactly why Earth is classified as a level 9 Deathworld. That conversation haunted me for the rest of the week. I found myself watching Riley more closely, trying to understand what made her tick. What I discovered was somehow more terrifying than the physical dominance. She was kind. Genuinely, almost aggressively kind. When a Flibian student got stuck in a ventilation shaft because nobody else could fit, Riley volunteered to crawl in and guide him out, spending 3 hours in a cramped space that would have sent most species into panic attacks. When the cafeteria accidentally served food that was toxic to Morphians, Riley organized a midnight cooking session in the rec room, somehow creating edible meals using only ingredients from the station's emergency supplies and a hot plate she'd smuggled in her luggage. When a group of upperclassmen started a betting pool on which new student would wash out first, Riley found out, crashed their game, and won enough credits to buy the entire freshman class pizza. Human pizza. From Earth. which cost more than my monthly salary because the shipping fees were insane. She was a menace wrapped in compassion, held together with sarcasm and an apparently unbreakable spirit. The real test came 2 weeks into the semester, during what should have been a routine field trip to the station's agricultural dome. We were studying xenobotany, specifically how different species had adapted plant life to survive in artificial environments. Boring stuff. Safe stuff. Until it wasn't. We were about 40 minutes into the tour when the environmental alarms started screaming. Red lights flooded the dome. The guide, a nervous Pelaxian named Instructor Yetta, immediately started herding students toward the exit. Remain calm. Proceed to the emergency airlocks in an orderly fashion. But panic doesn't do orderly. The students surged forward, pushing and shoving. Someone screamed. I saw a small Flibian get knocked down, about to be trampled by the stampeding crowd. Riley moved like lightning. She scooped up the Flibian with one arm, planted herself in front of the panicking students, and shouted in a voice that could probably be heard in the next sector, "Stop! Right now! Everyone freeze!" And they did. Something about the absolute authority in her voice, the complete confidence that she would be obeyed, cut through the panic like a plasma torch through butter. Good. Now, we're going to do this the smart way. Flyers, you go first. Use the upper airlocks. Strong swimmers, you take the lower exits in case we need to seal sections and flood them. Everyone else, form a single line. Move quickly, but don't run. If someone falls, help them up. We're all getting out of here, and we're doing it together. Got it? They got it. In under 3 minutes, Riley had organized a chaotic mob of terrified teenagers into an efficient evacuation operation. I helped where I could, but honestly, she had it handled. The Flibian she'd saved clung to her shoulder, eyes wide with terror and trust in equal measure. We made it to the safety corridor just as the dome's main airlock sealed behind us. Through the viewport, I could see the agricultural section venting atmosphere. A micrometeorite had punctured the outer hull, not large enough to cause catastrophic failure, but definitely enough to ruin everyone's day. Instructor Yetta was hyperventilating into a breathing apparatus. The students clustered in shocked groups, protesting their near-death experience, and Riley just set the Flibian down gently, patted his head, and said, "See? Told you we'd be fine." I cornered her again because apparently that was my entire job now. Where did you learn to do that? Command people like that? She shrugged, but I could see the adrenaline still pumping through her system. Her hands were shaking slightly. Summer camp. I was a junior counselor for 3 years. You'd be amazed how similar a group of panicking aliens is to a cabin of homesick 80-year-olds during a thunderstorm. That was incredibly dangerous. You could have been hurt. Yeah, but I wasn't, and neither was anyone else. That's what matters, right? I wanted to argue. I wanted to write her up for reckless behavior. But looking at the grateful faces of the students she'd saved, the way they kept glancing at her like she was some kind of hero, I couldn't do it. Instead, I filed another report. This one had a different tone. Human student Riley Vasquez continues to display leadership capabilities beyond her age and experience level. Recommend consideration for advanced placement in crisis management courses. The semester continued. Riley kept being Riley, which meant my stress levels remained at critical highs while somehow everyone around her seemed happier and more confident. She started a study group that met 3 times a week. She organized movie nights featuring films from dozens of different worlds. She even convinced the cafeteria staff to implement a rotating menu system, so every species got their favorite foods at least once a week. She was changing the academy, one small act of chaotic kindness at a time. The final incident happened during finals week. A Kraknor student, different from the one Riley had embarrassed on day dawn, decided he didn't like how friendly everyone had become with the human. Kraknors, as I mentioned, value strength and dominance. The idea of a weak species like humans commanding respect offended his cultural sensibilities, so he challenged her to a formal combat trial in the training arena. Public. Sanctioned. Completely legal under academy rules as long as both parties consented and safety protocols were followed. Riley accepted before I could talk her out of it. The entire student body showed up to watch. The arena was packed. I stood in the coordinator's box, feeling sick to my stomach, watching Riley stretch in her corner while the Kraknor, whose name was Brak, performed aggressive dominance displays across the mat. "This is a terrible idea," I muttered. "Or it's the best idea ever," Tala said from beside me. The little Morphean had now snuck into the coordinator's box and was bouncing excitedly on her tentacles. "Riley's going to win. She weighs maybe a third of what he does." "Yeah, but she's from Earth. I've been reading about Earth. Did you know they have birds there that can kill with a single kick? And spiders that can eat birds? And plants that literally eat animals?" Riley's ancestors survived all that. Brak's ancestors just had to be bigger than the other Kraknors. The match started. Brak charged immediately. All that massive bulk aimed at crushing the tiny human into the mat. Riley sidestepped, fast as thought, and landed a strike to his knee that made him stumble. He roared, spun, swung a fist the size of Riley's head. She ducked, moved inside his reach, and hit him 3 times in rapid succession. Chest, throat, solar plexus. Brak gasped, stumbled back. The crowd went absolutely insane. What followed was 5 minutes of the most technically beautiful combat I'd ever witnessed. Riley wasn't trying to overpower Brak. She was dismantling him. Every movement was precise, calculated, turning his strength into a liability. She was water flowing around stone, wind eroding a mountain. All those poetic metaphors humans loved to use about martial arts made manifest in real time. Brak never stood a chance. The match ended with him on the mat, Riley's knee on his chest, her hand raised in victory. The arena erupted. Students from every species were cheering, chanting her name, celebrating not just her win, but what it represented. You didn't have to be the biggest or the strongest. You just had to be smart, skilled, and brave enough to stand your ground. After the arena cleared, after Riley had helped Brak to his feet, and they'd actually shared a respectful nod because apparently near-death experiences create bonds, I found her in the locker room. "You're terrifying," I said flatly. She laughed, wincing as she examined a bruise forming on her shoulder. "I've been told that before. I mean it. You've been here less than a month and you've completely upended the social order of this academy. Students who wouldn't speak to each other are now friends. Bullies are behaving themselves. The cafeteria staff actually smiles now. You broke a Kraknor in ritual combat. What are you?" Riley looked at me, really looked at me, and her expression softened. "I'm just a kid from a tough neighborhood trying to make friends at a new school. Coordinator. Everything else is just details. Earth isn't a neighborhood. It's a nightmare world where everything wants to kill you." "Yeah, but it's my nightmare world. And you know what? Growing up there taught me something important. Life's going to throw horrible stuff at you. Storms, predators, people who want to hurt you, systems that don't care if you survive or not. You can either curl up and give in, or you can stand up, look that stuff in the eye, and say, 'Not today. Not ever.'" She grabbed her bag, headed for the door, then paused. "Thanks for not giving up on me, by the way. I know I've been a handful. That was the understatement of the Galactic cycle. But as I watched her leave, surrounded by her friends, laughing at something Tala said, I realized something. High Scholar Mira had been right. We hadn't needed to control Riley Vasquez. We'd needed to let her be herself and trust that a human raised in Earth's crucible would know how to survive anywhere. Even here, especially here. I updated her file one last time. Human student Riley Vasquez has exceeded all expectations. Recommend continued enrollment in consideration for student leadership positions. Also recommend therapy for her assigned coordinator, who may be developing anxiety disorders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More chaos, more heart attacks. More moments where I questioned every life choice that led me to babysitting a Deathworlder. But honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because Riley Vasquez, that tiny terrifying bundle of human determination, had taught me something important too. Sometimes the scariest things come in the smallest packages, and sometimes, just sometimes, A little chaos is exactly what a too orderly world needs to remember how to really live. Class dismissed.